So, can I get a real quick raise of hands if you have heard of bird dogging before? Okay, some raise hands. Um, so this is a training that we just did last Monday with a coalition of folks on bird dogging, specifically around elected officials for polluters pay. So, um, before I get into what birddogging is, I'll give a very, very brief overview of what I just mentioned, the Polluters Pay Climate Superfund. As folks know, Big Oil has made trillions of dollars while communities suffer climate disasters and taxpayers continue to foot the bill. Not only are we paying for the product, but we're also paying for the damage caused by the creation, transportation, and use of the product while Big Oil pays for pretty much nothing. And so this bill, the Polluters Pay Climate Superfund, would make it so that fossil fuels responsible have to pay their fair share towards the climate damages that they've caused. And it has passed already in Vermont and New York. So if we pass it, we would be the third state. If another state doesn't get to it first, because there's a ton of states across the country that are trying for it right now, because we know it'll be effective. Uh, Currently, the bill is not active in the California legislature, but is going to be reintroduced in January. So we're trying to build as much momentum and support as possible before then. So we have a mandate going in with hundreds of thousands of constituents behind it. So what is bird dogging? Bird dogging is the practice of showing up at public events where elected officials are present and asking them on the record questions about your issue to create accountability and media attention. And the general goal is just to get officials on record, publicizing their stance, building pressure, and make polluters pay on the radar. Um, and there's a few reasons why you might why you might choose this tactic. One is to move your target, which is kind of an obvious one of when elected leaders are hearing their constituents ask about this issue time and time again. It shows that the issue has broad support. It puts the issue on their radar, puts the support on their radar, and it can shift where the elected official stands on the issue. It also can put them on the spot and make them have an on the record opinion if they've avoided having one before, especially in situations where it doesn't look good to avoid the question. It can also, number two, uplift the issue. So interactions with elected officials gain traction on social media and in the press. And if you have a clip that is strong, it can spread widely and create public pressure beyond just what happened in the room. And on the record moments attract journalists, elevate the issue in the news cycle, and just brings more interest and attention to these things. It also can educate the public because their stance on the issue tells an important story about how in touch they are with the public on popular issues. And studies have been done in the last year that make polluters pay is an extraordinarily popular issue. So if the legislator is not supporting it, that might mean that they're out of touch with their constituents. So whether they support or oppose it, or if they don't want to give an answer, you want people to hear about that. And it can help all along the way. There's a spectrum of tactics here, though. Sometimes people hear bird dogging and they only think of the most confrontational instances of this. You might have seen some videos online lately from a group called Climate Defiance that does very high intensity confrontational things where they will go to often private events and just completely disrupt the event with a certain goal in mind. And that's one way of doing it. However, on this issue and in California and on this specific topic, that's not necessarily always necessary. Um, so we have a range of things that this can go on, and some of them include at a town hall Q&A. So this would be like a very polite, structured question at a public forum, and just ask them something on the record, but it's something where they're literally asking people to ask them questions and to give their opinions. There's also situations like rope lines or photo lines where you are talking to the official before or after events, um, and they are typically a little less formal. Brief exchanges are usually what happen at these. And then there's also things like photo bombing, so showing up visibly in the background of photos or of media coverage to raise awareness of your issue. So if you have a shirt or a sign that says "Make Polluters Pay" and you're in the background of a lot of photos, that will do something as well. And then video, audio presence might be sort of something more confrontational, signs, banners, chants, or noise to draw attention to the cause. Um, and how do you decide where on the spectrum you should be aiming for your bird dogging experience with your target? Um, so some key questions to ask yourself when you're thinking about this is, where is my target at on this issue? Are they a opponent? Are they a supporter? Are they an opponent? Are they undecided? Have they refused to say something on the record? Looking that up uh, doesn't mean, and depending on where they are, doesn't mean you don't show up. It just means that you might change how your tone is, because your tone could be humorous, confrontational. It could be kind of innocent, like coy a little bit. And matching the tone to the moment and the audience can be very useful. And you definitely don't need to have all of the answers. Uh, you can always say, I will get back to you with the answers to this, the answer to that. But this issue in particular is one that they should be have heard about. And they also is a very simple, it's a very simple issue. So it also should be relatively easy to understand. And we do have a toolkit with talking points for some of the most common uh, comments or questions that somebody might get. So it really is not as scary as it sounds. The important thing is to just be prepared if you are going to be doing bird dogging. Um, so one, you can set a goal before you get there. What do you want to achieve? Are you trying to get a commitment? Are you trying to get a clip, press attention, etc.? Make sure you know your question. You can use some of the things from the talking points, keeping it sharp and short, and practicing it out loud so you know you can fall back on it. Um, and yeah, having the talking points is helpful, but you don't need to know everything. If there's multiple people, you can decide beforehand who's asking the question, who's recording video, who's kind of watching the crowd, who's handling press if they show up. But I also want to emphasize here that if you are by yourself and there's somebody there that you recognize and they're a target and you want to talk to them, and you're by yourself and you're like, I don't have somebody to film this. You could film it by yourself and just keep your phone down low, or you don't have to film it. It is great when we can get clips to use for other leverage, but the most important thing is raising this issue with the elected. So it's definitely still worth it to just introduce it again to them, even if there's no clip that comes out of it, even if there's nothing like that. Um, and then there's some things here about finding opportunities to run into these folks and meet them. So as you said, researching where they stand on things. You can set up Google alerts for different events or things that your official might be going to. They also have things on their website often, or if you get a newsletter from them, sometimes they will have things there. And you can also brainstorm and be like, where are things happening in their district near where I live that they are likely to be at. So for example, we were talking about how a number of folks are likely to be at their biggest city in their district's 4th of July parade. Um, so you could anticipate seeing them there, even if they don't say explicitly, oh, we're going to be at this place at this time. An example of one of these other ones is that somebody on our team gets the constituent newsletter from Diane Pappin, and they got one about a town hall happening at a school that she was participating at. So they knew they could go to that, ask her questions. Um, this is a slide about capturing footage. I don't need to go into it, but just a couple of like logistical tips for if you are uh, filming. But I will flag here that it says that, if they dodge or refuse the question, that is also a story. And it also tells a narrative that perhaps they are being dodgy. And you can always share these clips out with us, with other folks in the movement. We will definitely amplify them. Um, and I want to share just a couple quick examples from recent events. Okay, this one's not going to show up, but this one is these two on the right here. This is Assembly Member Catherine Stefani, and then this is I think also Assembly Member Matt Haney, and these are two SF representatives. Matt Haney is a co-author on the bill, and Stephanie had said that she would support it last year when it didn't get up for a vote, and but we got a little bit of a like wishy-washy vibe from her. We weren't quite sure. And she said she would definitely need to like read the bill pretty thoroughly before she decided to support it again, which is fair enough. But the idea here is just to not let them forget that this campaign is here, that people care about it, and try to bolster their support. So one of our people, John at 350 San Francisco, went to SF Pride, signed up to be in Stefani's uh, group that was walking in the Pride parade, and brought his Polluters Pay sign, thanked her for her support, and asked her to take a picture with it. And her field director was like, "Oh yeah, great, we'd love to do that." And Matt Haney, as well as I said, is a co-author, so just being there and asking him to take a picture with it and thanking him very much for his support. Um, Thanking these people for these things is also very useful because it bolsters them and makes them more strong in their stance. So if they were like at 80% support, maybe it'll get them to 90% support because they know they're being reinforced that what they're doing is the right thing. And now we have these pictures of these representatives, and maybe we can get a whole bunch of them, and this kind of thing influences other electeds. Another example of how electeds can influence other electeds and our effects can ripple out is this example from Alameda, the city of Alameda, where students and community members worked with city councilors who were supportive of the Polluters Pay Climate Superfund and got a resolution passed. And then uh, I believe like a week or so later, the city council member who championed it took the opportunity in a public meeting where Senator Jesse Arreguín, who also represents Alameda, was going to be speaking to put him on the spot on this. And what's crucial about this is that we had not been able to get a stance from Arreguín on this before this instance. So we'll just watch this really quick.
Advocated recently in support of the Make Polluters Pay Act, and the City Council followed the example of Berkeley and passed a resolution in support of that legislation. So I'd just like to get your views and position.
Yeah, I do intend to vote for that bill when it comes to the state Senate. It's going to be challenging, but I think it's important that we take a stand. Statewide organizing and advocacy is going to be really important. There are very well-funded interest groups that are working hard to oppose this legislation. The governor has expressed concern about this legislation, and so there are some institutional barriers that we have to overcome. But I will say that, having sort of the local level and also in the state level, the impact of grassroots organizing and advocacy makes a huge difference, even in Sacramento. When we hear from people throughout the state about why something's important, that makes a huge difference. So that would be my advice, is really to just continue to speak out and really talk about why this is important. And clearly the climate emergency is not getting any better. Yeah. So we need to do something.
We had a bunch of young people in here talking about the Make Polluters Pay, and I think generationally, they're just like, look at this giant mess that we're going to have to clean up. And all the people that created this problem, I mean, they will, they'll be dead essentially. And so that is, I think, what I would like all of our legislators that actually can vote on this to really think about. And yeah, I think I'm just going to I just leave it at that. I work with children, so that's my day job. And so I think about it every single day, like the world that we're leaving them. And so I would hope that people would be bold and brave and do what's right for the next generation.
Yeah, so that I feel like is a really good example of putting people on the spot in a way that isn't necessarily like aggressive or confrontational. Um, Not to devalue those tactics because that also has a very important place. But this in its way is also bird dogging because you're putting a elected official on the spot on these questions. And we also, members of our team also did this at the California Democratic Party convention. We went around and asked Democratic candidates for governor if they would support a polluter's pay bill if it made its way to their desk. And some of the people were kind of nervous getting into this situation. And something we were reminding ourselves is they are elected officials, and this is an event where they are very much anticipating being asked questions, including uncomfortable questions, including things where they're being put on the spot and they don't know a position yet. So remember that our representatives do work for us and they do want us to tell them what we want them to do. Even if and if they don't, then that tells its own story. Um, so I'm going to pause there for a moment, and that will kind of wrap up our training for the evening, but wanted to give people a chance to ask any questions they might have or raise any other examples or thoughts from on this topic. All right. Um, The other thing that I'll note is that if anybody is in Contra Costa County, um, Rebecca Bauer Kane's district, I'm pretty sure folks are trying to go to I believe they're looking at the San Ramon 4th of July event to see if they can find Rebecca Bauer Kane there and talk to her about this issue. She has been a real, she is, she's put up a lot of roadblocks. I believe, was the one that said that she would be the seventh vote, but not the fourth vote, basically. So she wouldn't stick her neck out for it, um, which is a little bit crazy for somebody who's like kind of known as being like a climate champion. So that is the end of our training, and I'm going to stop the recording.